All right, let's get started. So today we will be demonstrating how to connect your Gurobipy model to Nextmv for decision ops. Our presenter today is Nicole Misek, and I'm Renu Kagoff. I'll be your host for the session. We'll start off with a quick overview of Nextmv and decision ops, then we will dive right into the demo. We'll do our best to save time at the end for a general Q&A, but we encourage you to ask questions in real time throughout the chat. At any point, feel free to drop questions into the Zoom chat or the Q&A feature. We have some Nextmovers on the call who are happy to provide you some live support. And any more general questions we'll save for a Q&A at the end. And don't worry, if we don't have time, we'll make sure all of your questions are answered via email. Okay, so let's talk briefly about decision ops. Decision ops is like ML ops for optimization, bringing that same standardization and transparency to decision science. So Nextmv is a decision ops platform that integrates with popular optimization tech that you're likely familiar with, such as Gurobipy, which we'll be highlighting today. Nextmv provides a built-in structure for decision ops to help develop, collaborate on, and manage optimization models. We'll see this local experience that Nicole will demo today at the beginning of the workshop. And this structure really provides organization per run. So everything is organized per run, like your input, output, statistics, and visuals to help you manage and scale your OR projects. So rather than having to hunt down files that may be named final, we've all been there, you can easily find everything you need that's tied to each run. So where does Nextmv fit? Nextmv is really the speed and trust layer for your decision models. And these layers are built using observability, experimentation, orchestration, and collaboration, all of which you'll see today. And they help you build a fast, repeatable pipeline that helps you move quickly and really build confidence across your stakeholders. Okay, so now onto the demo workshop setup. We will share the link to the step-by-step guide in the chat. But first, I want to do a little bit of setup. Today, we're going to demonstrate an end-to-end workflow that's starting with the basic model and data files and ending in the Nextmv platform. But I did want to highlight that we have a Nextmv Gurobipy package, and that really allows you to interact programmatically with Nextmv and the Gurobi solver in Python. So this means when you connect your model, you'll have access to configurable Gurobi options like heuristics, as you can see here, making it easier to tweak and test your Gurobipy model. The model that we are working with today is looking at the classic diet problem, where we'll want to minimize the total cost of food while also satisfying the nutritional requirements. So as we walk through this problem, we will configure options such as minimum protein and maximum sodium. And we want to see how do tweaking those impact our total cost. So we will create a few scenarios and experiment with those. So here's kind of a preview of what we will create. We will do a run of your model locally and then sync that to Nextmv. And as soon as that run has been synced, you'll be able to see all of this here, your output, input, metadata, logs, and a visualization here at the end. And also, like I mentioned, we will be creating scenario tests. So here's where you can see these configurable options. We'll be able to add multiple constraints here and change their values so we can see how they each impact our total cost. So how will we get there today? We are taking kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. The first piece is running your model locally with Nextmv, and this is unlocking that local decision ops experience that we looked at in an earlier slide. Next, we'll push and run that Gurobipy model as an app on Nextmv. So now we'll be running it remotely. This unlocks observability, collaboration, and orchestration. And then lastly, we'll create these configurable options that we'll use in our scenario test. So that really unlocks experimentation. Okay, like I mentioned, the demo workshop guide should be in the chat now. And with that, I will hand it over to Nicole.
Thanks, Renu. I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop now. All right. So I'm going to just work through this Notion page alongside anyone else who would like to do the same. So at this point, we've kind of gone through these prerequisites here, so I'll kind of skip past that. Um, so you've created your account, you've connected it to get access to be able to do the rest of the workshop, and you will need Python and pip to be installed as well. So for part one, we're really just going to be establishing getting the project files to run locally, just to kind of get us to a baseline where pretty much any optimization model is. So you have a model that is reading input, it's writing output, um, printing a visual, printing any metrics that you have about that optimization run. So that's kind of the starting state that we're going to talk about. And we're going to take that and then we're going to do that crawl, walk, run that Rainu went through to get it running locally with Nextmv and then remotely with Nextmv. So starting out, we are going to download these two files, the main.py and a dietdata.json file. And then we're going to just structure our local directory for running this model locally. So we're going to create a directory called Gurobipy example. We're going to put the main.py in there. We are then going to create an inputs folder and put the data in the inputs folder. And lastly, we'll create a requirements.txt file and we'll paste in these requirements. So I went through that kind of quickly because I actually already have those prerequisites kind of done on my side. So this is what the starting state of that model is. You've got your main.py, your requirements, and then an input folder with the input to the diet problem. All right, so now we're ready to install those requirements through our terminal. So I'm going to copy that command here and I'm going to run pip install. Okay, so that went through. And so now we're ready to execute that model locally. So I'll copy that command, paste that in. Oops. Okay, and so that solved the diet problem. The optimal diet based on this input and the requirements here is 0.6 servings of hamburger, 6.97 servings of milk, and 2.59 servings of ice cream. We also print some helpful statistics here around this particular optimization run, like the cost, which is the objective value, the number of variables of the optimization, and the number of constraints. So none of this has anything to do with Nextmv yet. We're really just solving this diet problem. And we're also printing a nice little pie chart visualization to understand the breakdown of the servings of each food item. All right, so now we're ready to move on to part two, now that we've established that we have an optimization model running locally. Let's see what it's like to work with Nextmv for the local experience. So to do that, we're going to pip install the Nextmv Python package along with all of its optional dependencies. Okay, so that worked. And we are now going to update our requirements to include Nextmv in the requirements.txt file. So I will do that here. Add Nextmv. Make sure to save that. And so we can additionally install the requirements.txt. I actually don't need to do that since I just did it up here. And then we will create a file called app.py. And we're going to paste the contents of this code block into an app.py. So I'm going to jump a couple of steps ahead since there's a step that takes a minute to run, and then I'm going to come back and explain what's happening here with this app.py file. Okay, so I'm going to initialize my local application by using that app.py command. And then I am going to replace the contents of the app manifest that was created by initializing that project with that code block from the Notion page. And so what this is doing is it's really just specifying configuration for interacting with this application. Things like where do you read the inputs from, where do you write outputs to, what requirements are included in this particular executable, and what files belong to the executable. I am also going to replace the contents of my main.py, even though really only a couple of lines are changing here. And again, I will come back and explain everything in a moment. Um, all right. And so now I'm going to make a local run. Okay, and so while that's completing, I can basically just show you here that we made a couple of modifications. We, instead of printing our statistics to standard out like we saw in the run that we made locally, we are now writing our statistics to a file called statistics.json. And we're conforming to the Nextmv statistics convention. So that's why we were importing that Nextmv Python package. So this is basically the way of telling Nextmv, these are statistics, so treat them as statistics and use them for experiments and for runs. So that was one change, is we really just conformed to that statistics convention. Another change is we conformed to the Nextmv visual assets convention. So just like writing statistics to a statistics.json file, we are writing assets to an assets.json file and conforming to the Nextmv convention for writing those. And so you can see here, instead of printing that pie chart to a PNG file, we are now writing the JSON representation of that pie chart as part of our visual asset. And so you can see here in that app YAML that we created, so I mentioned this is really what holds the configuration for the application. So you can see here that we are specifying a statistics.json, which is where Nextmv can identify statistics, and an assets.json where Nextmv can identify assets. So that was really the reason for those two changes in the main.py, but everything about the model other than statistics and assets remains the same. And so we also created that app.py. That app.py is really just a script that is leveraging the Nextmv Python SDK to interact with your application, either locally or remotely. And so what we're doing here is we have a command for initializing that local application. And when we ran that, we saw that we got an app manifest created. We have a command for making a local run. And we ran that and we saw that we got this run ID here. So now if we click on this .nextmove folder, we see that we have that same run ID as a subdirectory of that Nextmove folder. And now we have some inputs, or an input, which is the input that we pass through in that local run. We have logs, which is printing the Gurobipy solver chatter. We have outputs, which has a solution, which is that solution to the diet problem. We have assets, which is the JSON representation of that pie chart that we were printing. And we have statistics, which includes those statistics that we were previously printing to standard out. We also have a directory for the HTML representation of that pie chart visualization. So going back to our app.py, when we use the Python SDK to make a local run, we got this nice directory structure where we can get this reproducibility of what was the input that we used, what was the output that was generated, and what are all of the assets and the statistics that went along with that particular run. So it makes for a really, really nice local experience instead of doing kind of what Renu was talking about before, which is, this is my output final V1, my output final V2. This has this nice structure for reproducibility. All right, so now that we've talked through the local experience, let's go ahead and connect those local runs that we made to Nextmv Cloud. So in order to do this, we're going to go into the team settings in this top right corner here. API keys. We have an API key here, so we can copy that over. And then we will go into our terminal and run an export Nextmv API key equals, and then paste in that API key. I'm not going to do that now because I've already configured that. But for those following along, you can go ahead and do that. So I am on a Mac, so I'm running the Mac version for exporting an environment variable. But if you are on a Windows machine, you would follow this code block here. Okay, so now that we have configured our environment variable for the Nextmv API key, we're ready to run the next action from our Python SDK, which is to sync that local run that we made to Nextmv. Okay. And so what that's doing is it's looking in that .nextmv folder and finding any runs that have not been connected to our Nextmv cloud account, and it's syncing them to an application called Gurobipy example, as we've defined it here. Okay, so that completed. So let's have a look and see if we see that run now. And so I'm starting not from an empty application. I've obviously done this demo a few times, so I have more runs in here. But for those following along at home, you would really just see your one run that you just connected. And so this is the run that I made just moments ago at 11:18 a.m. Eastern Time. And we can see here that we've got that same structure that we had in our local .nextmv folder. So we have the input, which is the input that we used to solve the problem. We have the corresponding output, which is the solution. In this case, it's a text file, but typically our users have many files here. They might be JSON, they might be CSV, they might be Excel. We have any logs, which in this case is the Gurobipy solver chatter is being printed to standard out, so that gets picked up as a log. We also have that visual representation of that pie chart here. And we have our summary view, which includes those statistics that we printed conforming to the Nextmv statistics convention. So we can see we don't yet have any configuration here, and that's because we didn't add that. This is a Nextmv specific feature, which is to define options for interacting with your application. So we're going to go ahead and define those next. All right. So before we move on to options, I want to do one more thing, which is to push up the model itself to Nextmv. So we're going to copy this code block here. And so at this point, all that we've done is we've pushed up the runs, but we have not pushed up the model executable. So when I run this push command, what's happening is it's taking my files from my local app directory and it's pushing those to that cloud application that we defined up here, where that cloud application has an app ID, which is defaulting to that Gurobi example app ID. So you can see now that that app manifest becomes very important because it's saying, pass along all of the requirements from my requirements.txt file, bundle those up along with all the files that are a part of my executable, and push those as one single artifact to the Nextmv platform. The app manifest is also saying, when this is running on the Nextmv platform, know that it's a Python application that needs to run on a Python runtime. So this can take a minute just because if we recall from our requirements, there are some heavy packages in here like Plotly and Pandas, for example. So it's gathering all of those files, putting them into a single artifact, and then pushing that over the boundary. And so once that deploys, we will see that that I've pushed up my executable, and we're going to be able to make a run remotely on the Nextmv platform using Nextmv Compute to do that. Okay. Just another minute. Looks like we packaged it up, and you can see here there were 37,000 files in that artifact, so that explains why it takes a minute. All right. There we go. So now that deployed, and we see that we have our own endpoint that we can now make runs against with that model. So let's go ahead and make a run. And so to do that, if we recall, we've already synced up this local run. So I can just, from this local run, click this little plus sign, and I can clone it. And now that pre-populates all of my input data from that run that I had made locally, which is nice, so I don't have to find this input file again. I'm going to leave instance set to latest here. Latest is just the holding ground for the latest version of the executable that we pushed up. But a lot of our users are using version and instance control to basically cut versions of the executable and pin those versions to instances to run against. We can see here we don't have defined options yet. That was what I mentioned we're going to do next. But I'm going to go ahead and just hit run here. And so while that's running, let me pull up the past run. So under metadata, this was the run that I made locally. We can see that the type here is external because this was done on my machine and I synced this up to my Nextmv Cloud account. But if we go into this run that I ran after deploying the application, we can see that the type here is standard because this is now running on the deployed version of the executable. And we can see we have all of the same kind of information here that we had with that external run. All right, so now we're moving on to part 4, which is to define those configurable options to get access to experimentation on the platform. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to jump a few steps ahead like I did last time, and then I'm going to come back and explain what's happening. So first, I'm going to update this app manifest with a few new things like options. And then I'm going to update my main.py to wire up those options. Now I'm going to push that back up since we know that takes a minute with all of the dependencies. Okay, And so while that's going, let's talk about what we changed here. So in the app manifest, everything is the same. We basically have the same structure of telling Nextmv where to read input from, write output to, and how to bundle up that application and how to run it. But we have these additional lines here called options. And so what we've done is we've exposed an option called max sodium this is an integer, defaults to 1779, and we've exposed it as an input field in the UI. We've also exposed another input field called min protein with a default value of 91. So this is really what we're exposing for interacting with that application so a user can define these values. And so now that we've defined them in the app manifest, we needed to wire them up essentially so that the model is using them. And so to do that, we added these two lines at the top where we load in that app manifest into our model code and we extract those options that we defined from that app manifest. And then the only other changes we made here is we use those options. So we override the input data settings with the user defined options. And so now that we've done that, and once this pushes up, a user will be able to go into the Nextmv web UI and have a nice UI view for being able to edit these options. We support things like slider bars, drop-down menus. So it's really nice way to kind of put guardrails around how users interact with your optimization model. And I know we're coming up against the half-hour mark, so I promise I will be quick. We don't have too much more left to go through. So that is just about done. Okay. So now that we've done that, we're going to make a run in the UI. So I'm going to clone this run that we made in the past. And now we can see that we've got some stuff under defined options here. We have a max sodium level where we can make changes here, right? And we have a min protein level. I don't actually know if that's feasible, so maybe I'll make it higher value. All right. And so now we've got this box that comes up here with all of the run configuration summary. So you always know what your users used for configuration for a particular run. And when that completes, we've got our metrics view again. All right, so last piece here is to perform a scenario test. So we're going to first create an input set. So if we go into input sets, click the plus sign, and I can call this something like last day of data. Under create type, I'm going to select instance and date range, and I'm just going to grab the last 24 hours of runs that I made on that latest instance. Oh, and I apparently called it that already. Okay. And so this grabbed the 3 runs that we made today. And so now I'm going to go ahead and create a scenario test using that set of 3 inputs. And so what we're going to do is vary the max sodium level. So we're going to explore what if we increase that to 3,000. And we're going to also lower the min protein level to 0. So under scenario test, I'm going to click a new test, and we can say evaluate constraint changes, for example. And then I'm going to select that input set that I just created and the latest instance that we've been working with. And now instead of just looking at 1779 for my max sodium level, I'm also going to try, what if I greatly increase that amount? What do my costs look like? And for min protein, instead of looking at a minimum of 91, what if we said we don't actually need any protein? We do not advise that, but we just want to know what happens if you do that. And so we can create that test, and we can see that that triggers 12 runs because we've got 4 different combinations of options and 3 inputs, and the 4 times 3 is 12. And so when we create that test, that fires off all 12 of those runs in parallel, as you can see here. And so those are all now running simultaneously. And when that completes, we will get a nice interactive pivot table so that we can view any of our metrics and understand the impact of those constraint changes on our metrics. So we've got that nice pivot table, and we can see here that we've selected result.value to look at, which is the cost in this case of the solution. And we can see that when we have higher max sodium values and lower min protein values, we have lower cost diet, basically. And so that kind of makes sense because the dietary restrictions are kind of, unfortunately, food is cheaper when it's less healthy. So that's kind of a quick drive-by of scenario testing. And so we got through a lot today. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here now, and I'm just going to turn it back over to Rainu to do a quick wrap up.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nicole. That was a lot to get through. Very cool to see the scenario test there at the end. All right, so what just happened? We saw that Nicole created decision ops locally for her Gurobipy model, and we saw how that really helped her organize her files. Then she pushed the app to Nextmv, so now it was accessible via an API. We can do remote runs. And then, of course, at the end, we saw that scenario test with the options that she had wired up that were now configurable in the UI. And of course, throughout this entire process, what's really happening is there's a shared space for collaboration with teammates. So any of the views that Nicole shared can easily be shared with her teammates that she invites to her workspace. I know we're a little over time, so for those of you who have asked us questions directly that we have not gotten to, we will make sure to answer those directly with you via email. So not to worry there. And what's next? Like I mentioned, this is really a collaborative team workspace within the Nextmv platform. So once you've signed up for your free account, invite your teammates, collaborate together, look at how to share visualizations with each other, share scenario test results. And then next, you can bring your own model. Obviously, we've shared the guide for what Nicole's walked through today, but following those same steps, you can bring your own decision model to Nextmv as well. And then if you're interested in seeing more or want assistance in bringing your own model to Nextmv, you can always request a private workshop, and we're happy to do that alongside you. So that's it for today. We really appreciate your time, and we hope you've enjoyed the session. So we will see you on the next Tech Talk. Thank you.
Thank you.